Hi, Kim Rainer here from All About Spirits Life After Cancer, and I want to welcome you to episode 50 of Life After Cancer. And I created this show because when I was finished with my cancer treatment and trying to step back into life, I couldn't really find the support that I was looking for. And I know that cancer impacts every aspect of our lives: spiritual, physical, emotional, all of the changes that go on, all the way down to our sex lives. So I created this show to offer support to people who are looking for support and not able to find it in the conventional way. So, like I said, today's episode is episode 50, and the title of today's episode is called 6 Things I Learned After Ringing the Survivor's Bell. And there's a tradition when you're done with cancer treatment, chemo, or if you have radiation, there's a tradition where you get to go and ring the toll. I ring the bell after you're done with your treatment. And legend has it that the tradition came from a Navy admiral in 1996 in Texas who finished his chemo, and he donated a bell, a Navy bell, to the hospital that he was having his treatment at. And he wrote a poem, and I'm going to read the poem because I won't remember it otherwise. It says, "Ring this bell 3 times well. It's told to clearly say, my treatment's done, this course is run, and I am on my way." And there are millions of us, cancer survivors in the United States, who have shared that tradition, who have walked through that rite of passage, who have had that experience. And there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and festivities, and some facilities give you balloons, and they do, they offer food, and they have a little party for you, and there's lots of hugs, and there's tears, and all sorts of stuff that goes along with that. But I know from talking to other people that there's also a dark side to ringing the survivor's bell. There's a part of us, and there's some part of the population who experiences that as a really big loss. And that was a huge part of my creating this show and my business and all of the things that go along with it. And so today's episode, the 6 things I learned after ringing the survivor's bell, they really have, and I have notes here that I'm reading. I always have notes that I read. But they really have to do with spirituality, what I call the spices of life, right? It has to do with spirituality. It has to do with our physicality. It has to do with our intuitive natures. It has to do with all of the changes that went on, and our emotions and what we go through with them, and then socially, how we walk through the process socially. And so some of the things that I'm going to share today are spiritually. My foundation really crumbled when I was finished with my cancer treatment, and I was trying to figure out how to navigate life after that. And I learned that my foundation crumbled, and that it could be rebuilt. That it not only could be, but it needed to be rebuilt. And physically, I learned that there's a really big difference between cancer and a cold. And not everything that happens to us after cancer is cancer. We don't automatically always get cancer back. But there is a way that when I dwell on my fear about cancer and that kind of thing, that really has an impact on me, that it has an impact on my future health and where I'm going from here. So that was something that I was really surprised by. And then intuitively, when my life was really turned upside down, I didn't think that I was ever going to get out of that upside down part. And I needed to learn how to trust myself again. I needed to learn how to trust my environment and how to trust people, because some of those, some of my relationships and stuff, they changed. So there was a lot of things that I needed to learn how to do intuitively again. And then the idea of changes in and of themselves, there are so many changes that we go through, and they can be either a trap or they can become a doorway. And I needed to learn how to navigate through that process to figure out, okay, are my experiences going to be a trap to keep me stuck where I am or move me into an even darker place? Or is this going to become the gateway for me, the doorway to a new life? And how am I going to navigate that? And then, emotionally, I needed to learn how to glance at the troubles and the challenges and the problems and all of the negative stuff that was going on in my life. I needed to know how to glance at that stuff so I could deal with it without sitting there and staring at it and dwelling on it, because sitting and staring and dwelling was not going to be helpful for me in navigating through the process. And so learning how to glance, not stare, was something I needed to learn how to do. And then the last thing was really to navigate socially, that life was not going to be what I thought it was going to be. And I needed to figure out how to deal with that. And sometimes that dealt with people, sometimes it dealt with work kind of things, sometimes it dealt with relationships with people, and I needed to learn how to allow people to be who they were going to be as I navigated through the process. So there was a way that I had to learn how to step back and just allow things to unfold. And it took me years to figure out how to navigate all of that stuff, and it was a painful experience for me. It was dark, and it felt lonely, and I felt misunderstood, and it was a scary time for me. And today, I get the opportunity to look in the rearview mirror, and I get to see that I have so many blessings that came out of that process. I talk about having lost my home, and I moved from the city out into the country, and I get the benefits of living a country life today. And out of all of that pain, my company, All About Spirit, it was actually born out of that experience, and it was an unexpected bonus for me. And not only was All About Spirit born, but I also have met literally thousands of people over the course of time who have helped me in my journey and on my process and figuring out how to navigate all of this stuff. So that has been an amazing gift for me. And out of my All About Spirit being born, I also had the opportunity to create this show, Life After Cancer. And in that process, I've met hundreds of other people that I've had the opportunity to hear your stories and to work with you and to help you navigate through your processes and to help you learn how to deal with life after cancer. And that has been an amazing benefit, an amazing bonus for me. And people have shared their fears and their dreams and their hopes and things that they've never said to anybody else, and I get to be a participant in that because of my experience. And out of my experience, I also created a program called Treatments Over What Now, which is the Cancer Survivorship Program. It's a 7-week transformational program that helps. Hi, Alicia. Thanks for joining today. It's a 7-week program that really helps cancer survivors navigate through the life after cancer, the immediate moments when you're done seeing your medical providers on a regular basis. And, in that process, I go through what I call the spices of life, right? The spiritual, the physical, the intuitive, all of the changes, the emotions, and the social aspects. So we go through that 1 week at a time over the course of 7 weeks. And in the spiritual realm, I help you figure out how to take your crumbled spiritual foundation and build a new foundation and open your heart and your mind to some different ideas and to really explore the places where you're feeling stuck and trapped. And in the physical week in that chapter, what we look at is how to pay attention to our thoughts and how our thoughts actually end up pre-paving the way for us to either get trapped in the physical changes that have gone on, or to start to look at some ways that we can use the messages that our body is giving us to try and head ourselves in a different direction and cooperate with our medical team. And, in the intuitive chapter, we look at ways to start rebuilding trust for ourselves, trust for the world around us, to start to navigate some of that stuff. And then, there are so many changes that go on in our lives when we walk through the cancer process. So that chapter is really designed to looking at how we perceive change. How do we navigate through change? Do we look at it as oh my God, more change is coming up? Or do we look at it like, okay, I have some change coming up and I could be fearful about it, or I could choose to be excited about it. So we have some choices, and we look at some of that kind of stuff. And then in the emotional week or chapter, we take a look at how do I glance and not stare at all of the things that are going on? How do I not stick my head in the sand, but how do I not sit and retell the story over and over to get trapped in the negative emotions that are going on? And then the last week of the 7-week program is on the social aspect, and how do I interact now with my family? How do I interact with coworkers? How do I allow them to be who they're going to be when relationships don't end up being what I expected them to be? How do I navigate through all of that stuff? How do I navigate through it for myself? And I thought the mosquitoes were gone, but they're still around. So anyways, that's the Cancer Survivorship Program, Treatments Over What Now. That was born out of my experience. And I'm sharing this today because I have a new session of that starting in November, on November 1st. And I run it a couple of times a year, and it's a really small program. There aren't a lot of people. It's not open to a lot of people at one time because the work that we do is really private and it's really intimate, and there's not a lot of people in the space while you're doing that. It needs to be small and intimate. So I keep the courses really small. So the program is done remotely. I do it via Zoom, so we don't have to be in physical proximity to each other. We can, it's done as a dial-up program, as a webinar remotely. And then you also get, we record the program, so you get a copy of everything that we talk about during the show. So you get a live recording of it. And there's a workbook that you get. There's a daily workbook, because what I know today is that this takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes practice, and it takes support, and it takes having other people involved in it, and we don't do that alone. So there's a guidebook that you get that you can download, and there's a daily practice that's laid out for, it's designed for each of the programs and each of the topics that we're working on for a particular week. So what I know today is that there's a dark side to ringing the cancer survivor's bell, and not everybody walks away with all smiles and dancing through the hallways. There's a lot of people that do, but for those of us that didn't walk out the door that way, there is help for you. So if you know somebody who might be interested in learning more about the Cancer Survivorship Program, Treatments Over What Now, or TOWN as I like to call it, at the end of the show notes today, I will post a link on how you can find information about it. And in the coming weeks, I'll be sharing more information about how you can sign up, how you can register for it, the cost, and the money back guarantee if you decide that it's not something for you. So yeah, so that's what today's episode is about. It's about life after cancer, like they all are, and walking through the process right after you're done with your treatment. So if you found this show helpful today, or if you think that there's somebody who might be interested in the program, I would invite you to share the information, to share the link, to share information about the program. And I will be back again next week with another show. And I'm grateful to be here on the planet today, and I'm grateful for you for tuning in. And until we actually have a chance to talk, I hope that life treats you well. Thanks for being here. Bye.